If you're out there with a boy who's really struggling to try and find a great book to read, I've got the answer for you. It is The Maze Runner. This is brand new, just hit the shelves on October 6th. It is fantastic science fiction and adventure, just the perfect boy book. And I'm delighted to tell you I will be joined in the studio today by this author, James Dashner. That's coming up next on Books Alive. And thank you so much for joining us today on Books Alive. We have a novel situation here today, no pun intended, and that is that I have an author with me whose book was just published on October 6th. This is a breakout novel. It's called The Maze Runner, and it launched with Random House with 100,000 copies. So I'm pretty excited to tell you that I'm joined in the studio by James Dashner.
Hello.
Welcome.
Excited to be here.
This is really great. Now, since it just came out October 6th, I'm guessing not a lot of people have had a chance to read it yet.
Not too many.
But they're about to hear about it, and they're going to definitely want to pick it up. If you would give us just a sense, without giving too much away, of what the book is about.
Okay. It's kind of set in the future in a dark, dystopian, kind of post-apocalyptic world. And all these teenagers are thrown into this experiment of sorts where they literally live inside of a giant stone maze in this place called the Glade. And every night the walls close, protecting them from the maze that surrounds them, because there's these really hideous creatures called grievers that live out there. And our main character's name is Thomas. He is sent to this place, and that's where the story begins. And with his arrival, things begin to change. Things they're not used to start happening, and they realize that something really big is actually behind the maze, and they try to start figuring it out, and lots of dangerous things happen, and they need to escape. And that's what this story's about.
And they are absolutely determined that they're going to overcome this predicament that they've been put in, and that was really cool. Now, I have to tell you that I got online this morning and looked up dystopian, because I kept seeing it, and honestly, I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, it's kind of a word that's been used a lot lately.
Yeah.
It's kind of new, I think.
Okay. Well, they said I guess it's the opposite of a utopian world, so it's very dark and dysfunctional.
Right.
So, and I also looked up post-apocalyptic because I saw that you were doing a panel discussion in New York with other post-apocalyptic authors, and I thought, whoa, need to know.
Right.
Okay. Now, one very unique thing about this book is that it's all guys in that world. It is all guys, at least till the lift does its thing.
Until a certain point.
Yes. But that makes this a very powerful book. Because you've got, I was telling you before we went on camera, you've got two things going on. You've got them against that external threat, all those grievers, the unknown. They don't know they're in an experiment. They're just there fighting against awful things. And yet they have become their own world.
Yeah. This book was heavily influenced by two books I loved as a kid. One was Ender's Game, where you have Ender thrown into this, it's called the Battle School, where he has to learn all these different techniques and skills to prepare for this battle with aliens at some point. It's kind of a science fiction novel. And then you have Lord of the Flies, where, the boys are stranded on this island, and they start to degenerate and become like animals. Well, I feel like this book is kind of my answer to Lord of the Flies. These boys are all thrown in this place. And I feel like I would like to think that humanity, instead of doing what the Lord of the Flies kids did, they actually become more organized, more determined, more civilized, and more, the rule of law is, they realize how important that is. And I think that's an interesting dynamic between those two books. It's not it's not a diss on Lord of the Flies. It's one of my favorite books, but it's just a different feel on what I think would happen.
A whole different perspective and maybe even a hope. But
yeah.
you've got them trusting, believing in each other, and being willing to sort of sort themselves into their little professions, you know, what they need the others to be doing so that everybody can survive and succeed.
Right. Everyone has their own role in their own job. There's people who take care of the animals, people who do the crops, people who clean, and then there's the most elite position are the runners. They're the ones who go out and map the maze and search the maze. They're trying to find a way out.
Now, I would think this is geared to, what, 10 to 15-year-olds?
You know, it's listed as 12 and up.
Okay.
It's definitely young adult. It's a little scarier, a little darker than my other books.
But you just told me your 9-year-old read it and loved it.
Yeah, you know, we say it's 12 and up, so the 10-year-olds are desperate to read. Yeah, my 9-year-old, he really tore through it. He liked it, so that was good.
All right, so let's try and figure out what that was all about. Because to me, there's power in the fact that you gave this world its own language. I mean, they're calling each other stuff like shanks and things. And when I first read it, I realized I was going to have to sort of intuitively figure out what were they saying. But it really made that place real.
Yeah, I think there were different levels for reasons why I did that. Number one, I wanted the reader to feel disoriented with Thomas.
Cool.
Okay, so Thomas enters this place. His memory has been wiped. And he's hearing these strange words. He's seeing this strange place. And so I think for about the first 30 pages, the reader feels his disorientation. And then also some of the words, which are kind of their own slang, to me, since this is in the future, a different time, in a different place, they're isolated from society, it just gives their dialogue a different flavor, that you know this is not just our normal, typical world.
Yep.
And that was really the two reasons for that.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I tried to be creative with the words and not just, I didn't want anything to be a replacement word. So, you know, there's not like a word that is used in the way you would use the F word and a word that you would use the S word.
Yeah.
They're kind of unique in how they use the words.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and you also created really great characters.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I would think that one of the hardest things these guys would have to do would be to sort out the power, who's got what and why. And you know, you have a sort of a leader.
Hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing I've learned since I started writing to now is the importance of differentiating your characters, making sure that they have their own unique traits and personality. So I put a lot of thought into the 5 or 6 main characters and made sure that they had their own unique things about them.
So you really knew who they were as people when you went to write them, like they're friends almost.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
You always hear that about writers.
Yeah.
And I used to think they were just blowing smoke. But your characters really do feel like real people to you.
That's cool. That's very cool. Well, these are people that you would want to know, and they're people you'd want to be friends with. Now, you know, you've got some times that they're going to deal with things the way boys deal with things, you know, with a little violence and stuff. But it was a page turner.
Well,
I am not a sci-fi fan.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a realistic fiction girl.
Okay.
But I whipped right through it.
Wow.
I thought it was
awesome.
really, really good.
Thank you.
And now I want to ask a little bit about you.
Okay.
Because you're living out in Utah now.
Yes.
With a wife and 4 kids.
4 kids.
Yep. But you grew up in the South. You're an Atlanta
Georgia.
Falcon fan.
Big Atlanta
We've
Falcons.
established that.
Yeah.
And when I was reading this, I was thinking about how much I came to care about the characters, how much I believed in your characters, and how much they believed in themselves and each other. And I thought about you as a person.
Okay.
And we know you started out as an accountant.
Yes, my dark, dirty secret.
Drifted hugely
Yes.
to become an author. So what made you believe in yourself, you know, as you were coming along?
Right.
You know, you're struggling as a teen the same way these guys in their world are struggling.
Yeah. You know, it was, when I was a kid, books were my life. I loved reading. And so I had this dream to become an author. And I think it was kind of like, you know, a kid will say, I want to play in the NFL. They'll say it, but I think deep down they might realize, okay, that'd be really, really hard to do.
Now I'm going to stop you because I want to
Okay.
know why you read and why you wanted to be an author.
Okay. I read, I mean, from before I could remember, my parents read me books, and then I learned at a pretty early age. And it was an escape. I loved all kinds of different things. I loved adventure books. I loved funny books.
Did you learn?
Yeah, you learn from it. It's just, I've always had a crazy imagination, and books were good. They fed that.
Did you get a sense of what a man was or role models from reading books?
Yeah, I think so.
What
They kind of
gave
open up.
you that?
Put
We'll just put you on the spot.
me on the spot, yeah. Well, I remember some books I really loved were, you know, Madeleine L'Engle and Judy Blume.
Yeah.
In fact, I really had a surreal moment. I had cupcakes and tea with Judy Blume yesterday in New York City.
Oh my gosh!
Was
that at Books of Wonder?
No, it was at the Random House offices.
Oh my gosh!
She happened to be there, and they invited me in, and we spent about an hour. And I mean, I read every single book by her growing up.
Yes.
You know, Super Fudge.
Yes.
Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. All of them. And so that was, and she was a big inspiration. I just loved her books, and it made me want to write books. So that was a really cool moment to have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot, and that dream just got stronger and stronger. But I don't think I ever really truly believed in it until I went to college. I studied accounting just because, so I'd have a job. But I still had the dream. And when I really got serious about writing, excuse me, and I started writing novels more after college, I don't know, something sparked inside of me where I thought, you know what? There are people who get published. You know?
Yeah, it happens.
You go to a bookstore, there's thousands of books. And so it started to feel like something that I could do. And I remember very distinctly, in 2003, I set a goal, and I told all my friends and family about it, that I would be a full-time author in 5 years.
Wow.
And it's crazy.
And you did
to
it.
the month.
Wow.
5 years to the month,
Uh-huh.
I quit my job and became, and it was able to happen.
You know, that's really interesting when you think of the current popular culture thing of The Secret.
Oh, yeah.
And how you put out your intention, and then you can kind of live into it, you know, with the power of positive thinking, and it's like you did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm a case.
Yeah, right. Case in point.
Yes, case in point.
All right, so you decided to be an author, and was there a person in your life that made a difference, that taught you something, or?
Definitely, quite a few. I mean, you know, my mom was a big book lover. Our house growing up was full of books, every wall, everywhere. You know, I have distinct memories of my dad, who's passed away now, sitting on the couch in our living room reading his big, thick books. And I had a great teacher in high school, Mrs. Becker, who she really pushed me to write short stories, to be creative.
Good. So you got a sense that she knew you could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's wonderful.
And then there's just certain authors, excuse me. You know, I was a big Stephen King fan as a teenager, and Dean Koontz, and like I mentioned, Judy Blume already.
Wow.
I looked up to them. They were my idols.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I wanted every year it was just kind of this passion that grew. I wanted desperately to be an author.
Wow,
so
that's amazing. Well, he just mentioned Stephen King, and
yes.
we have a wonderful story about him and Stephen King, but we're going to hold on to that, and we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to look at his other series, The 13th Reality. We'll be right back.
No matter where you live, life in the ocean depends on you. Do your part to help protect it. Recycle and dispose of your trash properly. To learn what you can do, go to keepoceansclean.org.
I'm a single mother of 2 kids. I work a lot. I come home tired. We do miss a lot. He dropped off for a whole month. Sometimes I would talk to him and he wouldn't even turn around and look at me. I would just get frustrated because in any way that I talk to him, it just doesn't go through his head. I didn't give up because there's always hope that they'll snap out of it.
Give your teen the boost they need to graduate. Call 1-877-4A-KID or join us at boostup.org for tips and advice.
And welcome back. Right before we went to the break, I was telling you all that we have a wonderful little Stephen King thing going on here. And I was doing research for this interview, and I saw a wonderful thing on, I think it's your blog, which is what, Dashner Dude?
Oh, the Dashner Dude is what it's called. It's at jamesdashner.com.
.com, okay. Yeah. All right. So you were asked about writing plot. And you are a big fan of Stephen King, right?
He is my idol. Yes.
Okay, so we're going down and saying he is his idol.
Yes,
now,
he definitely is.
Now, tell us about Stephen King's plotting.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, someone had asked me, because there's kind of 2 types of writers. There's writers who plot out, know their story, and then write it. And there's writers who just kind of have a general premise and start writing and let the story take them. I'm kind of in the middle. I think about my plot. I kind of very basically map out the story, maybe on a page or 2. I try to think of how it ends before I start writing it. I don't do elaborate outlines. Well, Stephen King does no plotting, and he's adamant that he has a premise, he has a basic idea, and he starts writing and he lets the book take him where he wants. Well, I can't really do it that way, and I remember on my blog once someone was asking me about it, and I thought, well, Stephen King's my idol. He's my favorite author. I think he's the most brilliant writer in America.
Wow.
But if I've ever had a complaint with any of his books, it's sometimes I'm disappointed at the end. And I remember I said something like, and I hope to God that Stephen King never reads that.
Yeah, you said that several times.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very rare that happens, but sometimes. And I think that maybe, and I had the opinion that, you know, maybe sometimes he's even disappointed in the ending, because that's where the book took him, and that's how it ends.
Yeah.
And he's faithful to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
wow.
But it works for Stephen King, and so it obviously works.
It's
in general.
working.
Yeah.
It's working. Right.
I don't want him to change.
No.
He's one of. I mean, you know, I read every book that comes out, and I have learned more from his writing and his book on writing, which is literally called On Writing, than anyone else.
So that's a great tip for anybody out there who wants to write. If he's going to it and he's written this, that's definitely one to check into.
Yes.
Now, it's going to look to a lot of people like you're an overnight sensation, right? But let's talk about this one, because you just told me this is your 13th Reality series, which you said is going to come out in paperback with Simon & Schuster.
Yes.
This one's coming out in December.
December 22nd. Yep.
Okay, right before the holiday. And book 2 comes out in what?
February.
In February, okay. All right, now, what was this about? Because I haven't read these, I just got them.
This is a series that people will definitely start hearing about. It was done with a smaller publisher called Shadow Mountain, and it's a 5-book series. It kind of deals with alternate realities and science, quantum physics being used as magic.
Wow.
and kind of all these different versions of our world with different levels of technology.
Oh my!
And stuff. And it's a really fun series. It's going to be 5 books.
Uh-huh.
So
how
Simon
old would the readers be for this?
This is more middle grade, so it's probably kind of the 4th and 5th grade through 7th grade age.
Okay. Do you know the series So You Want to Be a Wizard?
Yes.
Is this at all similar?
Well, maybe. I mean, there's no wizards or witches or magic wands or traditional magic. It's more It's more of trying to explain magic scientifically.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah, and so with Simon and Schuster having purchased the paperback rights, it's going to get a lot more distribution, a lot more press.
All right, now this one is called The Journal of Curious Letters.
Right.
That's book 1.
Right.
So that's going to come out in December, and then
In
this
paperback.
other in paperback. This one, book 2, is The Hunt for Dark Infinity.
Right.
So it's the same characters?
Same character, yep.
Okay.
And that will come out in paperback in February,
Okay.
and then the 3rd book in the series will come out in hardback next April.
Oh, cool. Now, your Maze Runner is going to be a trilogy, right?
Yes, so it's
Yeah.
kind of weird that I have 2 series going on at once.
Yeah.
I never really intended that to happen. I'd actually written the Maze Runner before I wrote the 13th Reality, and I think the 13th Reality is when I really blossomed with my writing skills, and I went to a lot of conferences and workshops, got better. And so I pulled the Maze Runner out and kind of rewrote it. And then my agent sold it to Random House, and suddenly they wanted it, and they wanted to do the trilogy. They wanted to do it pretty quickly.
And you have finished book 2. You said it's coming out next October?
Yep, book 2 is done.
Are you working on book 3?
Yes, I am.
Do you know the end of book 3 already?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Tell me what it is now.
Yeah, the Maze Runner is the type of story, I don't know if you watch the TV show Lost.
No.
You don't. Well, that's one of my favorite things of all time.
Okay.
I think Lost, the writers know how it ends, and they know what's behind everything. And that show would lose a lot of power if they didn't. And this is the kind of story where there's going to be a lot of surprises and a lot of twists. And if I didn't know what's behind everything, it would have really weakened the story. So
you're just making your way to that end, and you can have
Yes.
lots of fun along the way.
I'm having lots of fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's cool. Well, you haven't always been having lots of fun, because when I was reading about the journey of you as an author, I had to laugh. I had to laugh. There was you had just published maybe your first book.
My first book with a really, really small publisher.
Okay, and you were listening to an author named Anita Stansfield.
Yes.
Talk about how she'd sold almost 1 million.
Yeah.
And how did you feel?
Yes, yes. That was a very distinct point in my career. It's called A Door in the Woods. It's a book no one's ever heard of, with a very small publisher. It had just come out, no marketing, nothing, no one had heard of it, no sales. And I went to this event with this other author who was up there talking about how she'd sold almost 1 million copies, and I was kind of feeling sorry for myself, and
In your blog it
pity.
says you wanted to cry.
Yes, I wanted to cry. I was actually holding a copy of my book. But then she said the phrase, pounding the pavement.
Ah.
And she said that's how she did it. She went out, she worked hard, she did signings, she did school visits. And that was a pivotal moment for me. I determined, okay, quit feeling sorry for yourself. Don't cry.
Wipe the tear away.
And I started doing it. I did school visits. I did 100 signings where I'd sell maybe 1 or 2 copies. And that really it created this foundation that I got to know some other authors, some publishing people. I got my foot in some doors, and my career just kind of exponentially started taking off.
Isn't that amazing? There's so much work to writing the book, and then there's this other piece of it of having to go out and really make people aware that it's out there.
Yeah. I feel like I paid my dues, working hard to promote myself, and now that Random House is doing so much to promote my book for me,
It's kind of nice.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah,
no one knows.
Right,
I appreciate it, yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right, now let's see. What did I want to ask you? Oh, you were talking about going out and doing school visits and how much, I've read how much you enjoy it, and I've read how much you love writing and how much you like writing for children.
Yeah.
And why young adults?
You know, that's an easy question to answer.
Okay.
When I was 10, 11, 12, and then through my teen years, reading was my favorite thing to do, and there was just this magic about it. I still remember that magic. And now as an adult, I still love to read and read like crazy, but I feel like it doesn't have that same magic. But writing books for that age brings that magic back like crazy.
Can you define it?
It's just a feeling. I don't think I could define it.
Okay.
It's just...
Is it connection?
It's connection. It's
awakening.
It's the kid in me.
Ah, okay.
It's
fun.
The Disneyland in me. It's
adventure.
Adventure.
Unknown.
It's you can use your imagination as much as you want, and no one's going to say no one will believe you. I mean, when you write books for adults, I just feel like I would be restricted. That I have to make sure adults like it. When kids, they can suspend their disbelief.
Wow.
They can.
They're more open.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're
wow.
open, and I just love it.
That's cool. Now, what about your book as a video game?
My book is a video game. Well,
you think you could do that?
Well, yeah. The Maze Runner actually on the MazeRunner.com has an incredible video game that Random House created.
Oh my gosh!
You solve 10 missions inside the maze, and they get harder and harder.
Cool.
So yeah,
That's
I think this book,
yeah,
in some ways, is like a video game, and I also envisioned it cinematically.
Perfect.
I really think it'll make a great movie.
It'll be huge. Absolutely. That's really cool. That is awesome. Well, so we have to wait until next October for book 2 of that one, and we have to wait until April for book 3 of that one, but we can be reading these now. Yes. Right?
Yes. So for the next couple of years, I'll have a spring and a fall release.
Wow. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it's fun. I
love
it.
Parents of boys really struggle trying to find books that will connect with them. And I see boys in 4 different categories of readers. And I think that you have hit 3 of them with that one book.
Wow.
And that is the thrill seekers, the belongers and connectors, and the guys who are like seeker leaders, who want to explore the world, find out how to make it a better place or make themselves a better place.
Wow.
I really think you did. I think you just really did. The only one you didn't get was the Answer Man. But he's out there looking for trivia facts, you know, stuff like that.
I'll throw some random trivia in
there
there
you go. Yeah. Well, I think you can lure them in sometimes with some other kinds of books. But yeah, I think it's going to be really great.
Oh, thank you.
And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really, really awesome.
Oh, that is great to hear.
So this is exciting to get you at the kind of the beginning of your career, because I have a feeling you're going to be up there with the giants.
Well,
so
I hope so.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for joining us. We've got the Maze Runner at the library, and you know, be one of the first to sign up for it. It's great. If you liked the Hunger Games, this is awesome. This is really good. So, as always, come see us at the library.